Ethan, the boy left by his millionaire father in the forest at the age of 4, has returned. But why is he back for revenge, or is there something deeper? After 25 years, when the father thought he had escaped his past, Ethan will make him face the consequences of his own actions. What happens when the one who caused a child suffering has to confront the betrayal they never saw coming? This story is not just about revenge. It's a battle for redemption and a future beyond the darkness. Don't miss the unexpected ending that will leave you speechless. Like and subscribe to witness the twist you won't see coming. The wind howled relentlessly, whipping through the treetops, creating an eerie sound like the wailing of lost souls in the heart of a raging storm. A luxurious car sped down the muddy dirt road, leaving deep tire tracks in the wet earth. William Harrington gripped the steering wheel tightly, his cold gaze reflecting in the rearview mirror. The car rolled through the desolate forest road, carrying a small, trembling child in the back seat. Ethan Carter, frail and weak, shivered in his thin clothing. He didn't understand what was happening, only clung tightly to the seat, his wide, fearful eyes staring into the unknown. "Dad, Dad." His young voice quivered, barely louder than a whisper against the wind. William didn't respond. He kept his eyes fixed ahead, ignoring the fragile voice behind him. He couldn't allow himself to waver. This had to be done for the family's honor, for his own status. Ethan could not exist. The rain grew heavier as the car came to a stop at the edge of the forest. William stepped out, his expensive leather shoes sinking into the mud. He took a deep breath, pushing away the emotions creeping into his mind. There was no turning back now. He opened the back door. Ethan looked up, his innocent eyes filled with trust. "Get out of the car." William's voice was deep and emotionless. The child hesitated, gripping the seat tightly, an overwhelming sense of unease washing over him. "Dad, where are we going?" Ethan's voice wavered with fear. William didn't answer. He reached down, grasped the small arm, and pulled the boy out of the car. Ethan stumbled, nearly falling, his bare feet touching the cold, wet ground. "Dad, I'm scared." The boy clung to William's hand, his eyes pleading. William yanked his hand away, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Stay here." Ethan's eyes widened in confusion. He looked around. Darkness surrounded him, the towering trees loomed overhead, and the wind howled like an invisible predator. The rain poured down, soaking his soft hair. "Dad, please don't go. I'll be good. I won't bother you anymore." Ethan sobbed, his tears mixing with the rain. William turned away. He couldn't look into those eyes. "Don't call me Dad." The words were cold, slicing into the boy's heart like a knife. Ethan froze, his tiny hands still reaching out in desperation. William took one last look at the child, then turned and strode toward the car. "Dad, don't leave me." The scream tore through the night. William didn't stop. He got into the driver's seat and started the engine. The car roared in the rain like a cold, mechanical beast. Ethan ran after it, his small hands pounding on the window, clinging to the last shred of hope. "Dad, please, I beg you." William stepped on the gas. The tires spun in the mud, flinging dirty water onto the fragile little body. Ethan fell to the ground. His wide eyes watched as the car disappeared into the rain. He couldn't believe it. His father would come back. His father had to come back for him. Right. But the car's headlights had vanished. Silence swallowed the night. Only the sound of raindrops tapping against the cold earth remained. Ethan curled up, hugging his knees, his whole body shivering from the cold. He waited. The rain continued to fall. The wind continued to howl. The darkness remained thick, but no one came back. A 4-year-old child abandoned in the depths of the forest, alone and small like a fading ember in the raging storm of life. Ethan huddled under a tree, his breath shaky. The rain poured down in torrents, the icy wind lashing against his delicate skin, making him shudder uncontrollably. His tiny hands clutched each other desperately, seeking warmth in the endless darkness. He didn't understand. Why had his father abandoned him? Was it because he had done something wrong? Or was it because he was a crippled child, unworthy of love? Ethan raised his hand to wipe his tears, but the rain kept falling, washing everything away. He sat there for a long time, his exhausted eyes slowly closing. But every time he dozed off, he jolted awake at the strange sounds echoing from the depths of the forest. The rustling of leaves, the wind whistling through the branches like an ominous whisper. And something was moving. Ethan held his breath, his eyes wide open in the darkness. Behind the tree trunks, shadowy figures flickered in and out of sight. Pairs of wild eyes gleamed in the night. His small hands clenched tightly, his tiny body frozen in fear. His stomach growled. Hunger came along with fear. Ever since his father had abandoned him, Ethan hadn't eaten anything. He looked around desperately, searching for something edible. But the night was cold. The forest was barren. There was nothing but damp earth and fallen leaves. He took a step forward, his bare feet pressing against broken twigs, sending sharp jolts of pain through his body. He had no idea where he was going. He only knew that if he stayed in one place, he would die. "I have to find food," he mumbled, his voice barely audible against the wind. After stumbling around for a while, Ethan spotted a bush with small, bright red berries. His eyes lit up. Could he eat them? He didn't know. But his stomach ached, and he was too hungry to think. He plucked one berry and brought it to his lips, sour. His throat tightened at the harsh, acidic taste, but at least it helped dull the hunger. He ate a few more, the bitterness mixing with the sourness. But he didn't dare eat too many. What if they were poisonous? Another icy gust of wind blew through the trees, making him shudder. He needed shelter. Ethan groped his way through the darkness until he found a fallen tree, its trunk creating a small hollow. Crawling inside, he curled up like a frightened animal. His stomach still twisted with hunger, but exhaustion had overtaken everything else. He drifted into sleep. A howl echoed through the forest. Ethan jolted awake, his heart pounding. He listened, his body tense. It was a wolf. He had never heard a wolf before, but instinct told him it was dangerous. The howls grew closer, accompanied by the soft crunch of paws moving through dried leaves. Ethan held his breath. From the darkness, a pair of golden eyes appeared, glowing like eerie gemstones. A massive gray wolf stood there just a few steps away. Ethan didn't dare move. The wolf stared at him, its head lowered slightly, its heavy breaths fogging the cold air. Its ears perked up, listening for the slightest movement. Another howl rang out. The wolf flinched and turned its head toward the deeper part of the forest. After a moment of hesitation, it let out a low growl and vanished into the night. Ethan remained motionless, his breath rapid, his small hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He had almost died. For the first time in his life, he felt death so close. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he bit his lip to stop himself from crying. He couldn't be weak. He had to survive. At any cost. The sun barely peeked over the horizon, its pale light unable to chase away the lingering cold from last night's storm. Ethan opened his eyes. His entire body felt stiff, his clothes soaked and caked in mud. His stomach twisted in agony. His throat was dry. Every movement sent a sharp, stabbing pain through his limbs. He dragged himself past fallen tree trunks, his dull eyes searching for anything edible. But the wild forest was no place for the weak. No food, no clean water. He was exhausted. He had no idea how long he had been walking, only that his tiny feet were now bleeding from stepping on sharp stones. If this continues, I'll die. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed in the distance, the rhythmic pounding of hooves on the dirt road. Ethan looked up. Ahead, a horse-drawn cart was approaching. The driver was a middle-aged man with messy black curls, a scruffy beard, and piercing eyes hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Vincent. He was a drifter making a living through black market dealings and underground trades. But today, he wore the disguise of a kind-hearted man. Vincent pulled the reins, bringing the horse to a halt right in front of Ethan. Seeing the small, frail, filthy child in the middle of the woods, Vincent frowned. "Well, well, a lost little boy in the forest," he said, his voice dripping with concern. "Hey, kiddo, what are you doing out here all alone?" Ethan lifted his hollow eyes to look at him. He had no strength left to speak, only able to part his lips in silent desperation. Vincent jumped down from the cart, stepping closer and crouching to examine him. He saw the scratches covering the boy's body, the bare feet smeared with blood. My God. Who would leave a child wandering in a place like this? He muttered, shaking his head. A long sigh laced with feigned sympathy. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you." Ethan didn't know what to do. He was too weak to run, too drained to resist. Vincent reached out gently, patting his head. "Are you hungry?" At the mere mention of the word hungry, Ethan's stomach let out a loud, pitiful growl. Vincent chuckled. "Come on, hop in. I'll take you to the village. There's food and water there." Ethan hesitated. He remembered how his father had once promised to take him to a better place, but instead he had abandoned him. Was this man the same? Then a sharp pain twisted through his stomach, leaving him unable to think anymore. Slowly, he gave a small nod. Vincent smiled, lifting the boy into the cart. He didn't know why a child was wandering the forest alone. But he did know one thing children like this. No one came looking for them, and that meant they were the perfect prey. A small, worn-down village at the edge of the forest. The houses were cramped together. The dirt roads were thick with mud, and the villagers wore grim, lifeless expressions. Vincent took Ethan to his home, a small wooden cabin at the far end of the village. He placed an old loaf of bread and a cup of water in front of the boy. "So, kid, can you tell me your name?" Ethan took the bread, but didn't eat it right away. He stared at Vincent, his eyes still filled with suspicion. Noticing this, Vincent laughed. "You can trust me. I won't hurt you." Ethan remained silent. But hunger had already won over fear. He took a bite, chewing so fast that he nearly choked. Vincent watched him closely, the corner of his lips curling upward. "Do you have a home?" Ethan froze. Did he have a home? The answer was too obvious. "No," he whispered. Vincent let out a long sigh as if in pity. "Such a shame. Well then, would you like to stay here with me?" Ethan looked at him. "If you stay here, you'll have a bed, food to eat. I'll teach you how to work, how to make a living." Vincent said, his voice smooth, coaxing. The boy remained quiet. He had no idea that from this moment on, his life had fallen into another trap, a trap far more terrifying than the wild forest. During his first days at Vincent's house, Ethan thought he had finally found a place to belong. At the very least, he no longer had to wander the forest, no longer had to endure long, freezing nights without food. Vincent had given him a roof over his head, bread and water. But then he realized that things weren't as they seemed. Vincent was not a kind man. He was a smuggler making his living through dirty deals in the shadows. He hadn't saved Ethan out of compassion. He had only seen a child no one cared about, a tool he could exploit, and he had begun to use him. Early in the morning, Vincent tossed an old sack at Ethan. "Go to the market, kid. Beg for money." Ethan stared at him with Shido eyes. "Beg." Vincent nodded, biting into a piece of bread, as he lounged with one leg crossed over the other. People pity children more than adults. All you have to do is look pathetic, cry a little, and the money will come. Ethan clutched the sack tightly, but said nothing. Vincent didn't give him a choice. If he refused, he wouldn't get food. And so for the first time in his life, Ethan stepped onto the streets, blending into the crowd of strangers. A chaotic place. Stalls displayed everything: fruits, meat, fish, second-hand clothes. The smell of rotten fish mixed with the scent of freshly baked bread, forming an overwhelming stench. Ethan walked along the muddy paths, his wide eyes observing the passing people. He didn't know what to do. Should he sit down and cry? Should he grab someone's sleeve and beg them to help him? He only knew one thing: he was starving. His stomach twisted painfully as he spotted a vendor grilling meat over a charcoal fire. The delicious aroma was unbearable. Slowly he approached, his small hands gripping the hem of his tattered shirt. The vendor, a plump woman with sharp, hawk-like eyes, glared at him. "What do you want?" she asked gruffly. Ethan swallowed dryly. Can I have some food?" The woman burst into laughter. "Got money?" Ethan shook his head. Her face immediately darkened. "No money, no food. Get lost." Ethan stepped back, but before he could move away, a rough hand grabbed his shoulder. "Whose brat are you? Why are you lurking around here?" It was a man, likely a nearby stall owner. He glared at Ethan with disgust. "Are you a thief?" "No, I'm not." Ethan shook his head, struggling to break free, but the man's grip tightened. "Street rats like you are nothing but filth. I've seen plenty of your kind. I should take you to the guards." The moment he heard the word guards, Ethan panicked. He thrashed, but the man was too strong. Just then, a group of children ran over. They were around 8 or 9 years old, their clothes ragged, their eyes filled with mischief. One of them sneered. "Look at that. A filthy little rat. Must be some bastard someone threw away." "Where did you crawl out from, freak?" The kids burst into laughter, shoving Ethan to the ground. Mud splattered across his face. He looked up, his eyes burning with shame. Why did they hate him? What had he done wrong? A rock flew through the air, striking his shoulder hard. "Get lost, cursed brat. Go die somewhere else." Another rock hit his leg. Ethan curled up, covering his head, as the laughter around him pierced through him like knives. But he didn't cry. He only clenched his fists, and in that moment, a single thought flashed through his mind. "I hate all of them." A luxurious mansion stood atop a hill overlooking the city, a symbol of power and wealth. Pristine white walls, towering columns, and an expansive, meticulously trimmed garden surrounded the estate. But behind that perfection, there was a secret no one knew. William hadn't slept peacefully since the night he abandoned Ethan. Tonight, the rain fell once more. William sat alone in his study, a half-empty glass of whiskey in his hand. He leaned back in his chair, staring into the flickering flames in the fireplace. Yet his mind drifted to a place far beyond. He had done the right thing. He knew he had no other choice. A crippled son would be a stain on the family name. The boy could never attend lavish high society parties, never inherit the family empire, never bring honor to the lineage. He had to choose, and he had chosen correctly. But the child's cries still echoed in his mind. Father, please, Father. He shut his eyes tightly, gripping the glass in his hand. Hallucinations. It was just hallucinations. He had tried to forget, but the more he tried, the more it haunted him. William stood up, poured himself another glass, and stepped out onto the balcony. The cold wind rushed past, carrying the damp scent of rain and earth. Below the city sprawled thousands of lives carrying on lives unburdened by the past. Suddenly, a shiver ran down his spine. He felt someone watching him. William whipped around. No one was there. He shook his head and scoffed at himself. "You're being paranoid, William." He stepped back inside, shutting the balcony doors. But the moment he turned around, an image flashed in the mirror. A child, standing in the rain, soaking wet, black hair plastered to his pale face, wide eyes staring at him. William froze, his breathing heavy. He turned around. Nothing. Only his own pale face staring back at him in the mirror. He wiped his forehead, feeling the cold sweat trickling down his spine. Was he losing his mind? No. Impossible. He just needed sleep. But as William lay down, the nightmare came for him again. He found himself standing in a dense forest. The rain poured heavily, towering trees loomed above, and shadowy figures flickered through the mist. A distant cry echoed. He stepped forward, and before him, a small child crouched on the muddy ground. Ethan. But not the frail boy he had abandoned. The child's face was ghostly pale, his dark eyes deep and endless, like two bottomless pits. His lips curled slightly, almost into a smile, but it was not the smile of a child. William stumbled back, his heart pounding. "Ethan," he whispered. The child did not answer. He stood up, taking slow steps toward him. A small hand reached out, but it was covered in dried blood. "Father." The voice rang out, soft, but chilling to the bone. William shook his head, stepping back. "You don't exist," he whispered. But Ethan kept walking forward. "Father, why did you abandon me?" "Shut up!" William shouted. But his voice was drowned out by the sound of the rain. Ethan stopped. A ghostly smile appeared on his young face. "You will be abandoned too." Then the boy vanished into the darkness. William jolted awake, his breath ragged. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. He raised a hand to his temple, trying to calm himself. "Just a dream. It was just a dream." But when he turned to look at the mirror on the wall, his heart nearly stopped. Because on the fogged-up glass, someone had written a sentence. "You will be abandoned too." Time passed. Ethan was no longer the weak child who had been stoned and ridiculed. He had learned how to survive, how to endure. And most importantly, he had learned that in this world only the strong were not trampled on. Vincent was neither a father nor a mentor. He was just a man who exploited everything for his own gain. And Ethan, he was just another pawn, a sacrifice in Vincent's dirty games. "Hurry up, kid, I don't have all night," Vincent snapped. Ethan, now 29 years old, lowered his head and clenched the torn bag in his hands. He took a deep breath before silently slipping through the crowd, heading toward the market stalls at the night bazaar. He no longer begged for food. Street kids had two choices: be exploited or learn to steal to survive. And Ethan had chosen the latter. Ethan weaved through the market stalls, his footsteps light as a ghost, his sharp eyes scanning the food vendors, searching for the easiest target. A bread vendor was busy chatting with a customer. Ethan moved in. A swift movement. His small hand swept through the air, snatching a loaf of bread, and tucking it neatly into his coat pocket. No one noticed. He turned ready to leave. "Hey, stop right there." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. The vendor had seen him. The man shouted, grabbing his arm. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Stealing?" Ethan struggled, but the man's rough hand gripped him tightly. "Everyone look. This brat is a thief." Judgmental eyes turned toward him. Some people sneered. Others simply shook their heads in disdain. "Whose kid are you?" the vendor barked. "No one's." Ethan muttered. The man snorted. "A worthless street rat, huh? Let me teach you a lesson." He raised his hand. The slap landed hard across Ethan's face. His skin burned. His ears rang. But he didn't cry. A normal child would have screamed. A normal child would have begged. But Ethan, he was no longer a normal child. He only clenched his fists. And in that moment, something inside him shattered. No more fear, no more tears. Only hatred remained. That night, when Ethan returned home with a bruise on his face, he said nothing. Vincent looked at him and laughed. "First time getting hit. Welcome to the real world, kid." Ethan didn't respond. He just stood there, his eyes darkening. Vincent noticed. He smirked and patted the boy's shoulder. "Don't worry. One day you'll be stronger than them. And when that day comes, no one will dare touch you again." From that day forward, Ethan changed. He was no longer a compliant, helpless child. He learned how to hide better, how to strike faster, how to see the weaknesses of others. He became a skilled thief. Vincent was pleased. Ethan was a perfect tool. But Vincent didn't realize Ethan was no longer his pawn. Inside him, a demon had awakened, and it was waiting for the right moment to rise. Time passed. Ethan was no longer the trembling child caught in the rain that night. He had grown taller, stronger. But more than anything, he had become someone who understood how the world truly worked. To Vincent, he was just a useful tool, a sharp knife that could slip through the shadows without leaving a trace. But in Ethan's heart, he had been silently nurturing a bigger plan. And that plan started with a name. William. "I got a big job." Vincent sat on a wooden chair, a half-smoked cigar between his fingers. Ethan stood before him emotionless. "A rich old man is looking for someone to steal important documents from a government building. If we pull it off, we'll make a fortune." Vincent narrowed his eyes, watching Ethan's reaction. "I want you to do it." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "A job this big. Why not give it to the older guys?" "Aren't I just a kid?" Vincent chuckled. "Kid, you're not that weak little brat anymore." He exhaled a stream of smoke, his voice lowering. "I see potential in you. If you pull this off, I'll give you a big cut." Ethan nodded. He wasn't interested in Vincent's money, but this heist might be the first step toward getting close to William. Late at night, Ethan moved silently across the rooftops, his footsteps as light as a stray cat's. He had planned everything meticulously: the security system, the guards' patrol schedule, the escape routes. He left no trace behind. His fingers brushed over the lock. A soft click echoed in the quiet night. The door creaked open. He slipped into the office of a high-ranking official. A large safe sat in the middle of the room. He knelt down carefully, turning the lock's dial. A series of faint clacks broke the silence. Then he stopped, his eyes locked onto a file sitting on the desk. William Harrington. He froze. That man was involved in this. Ethan opened the file, his eyes scanning the words inside. William wasn't just a millionaire. He was tangled in underground dealings. tax evasion, money laundering, bribing officials. He hadn't just abandoned Ethan. He was a monster lurking in the shadows. Ethan clenched the file tightly, his breathing unsteady. This was his chance. He took every document related to William. Then, he disappeared into the night without making a sound. Vincent stared at the stack of documents Ethan had brought back. "Where did you find this?" He raised an eyebrow. Ethan crossed his arms, leaning against the wall. "In the safe." Vincent whistled. "William Harrington. I didn't expect him to be involved in this kind of business." He looked up at Ethan. "What do you want, a reward?" Ethan shook his head. "I want to end him myself." Vincent stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. "Kid, I like your attitude." He took a drag from his cigarette, a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. "But William isn't easy to take down. He has money power and people protecting him." Ethan didn't respond. He already knew that. "I can help you," Vincent continued. "But you have to give me a reason." Ethan clenched his fists. "He's my father." This time Vincent didn't laugh. He looked at Ethan, his expression unreadable. "So that's how it is." He nodded slowly. "You want revenge, fine. But don't let emotions get in the way. Revenge isn't for the weak." Ethan said nothing. But inside him, his hatred burned fiercer than ever. He had been waiting for this day for 25 years, and now everything was only just beginning. The night rain poured down over the city. Heavy droplets pounded against rooftops and streets, washing away the dirt and the false sense of peace that cloaked this place. Ethan stood on the rooftop of an old building, his eyes locked onto the distant main road. A convoy of luxury cars slowly made its way up the hill, heading toward the grand estate, where William still lived in wealth and comfort. He had no idea that a demon was closing in on him. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, faded photograph, the only one he had left. A 3-year-old boy smiled innocently in the picture, unaware that just days later his own father would abandon him in the middle of a ruthless storm. Ethan tightened his grip on the photograph. It was time. William descended the grand staircase, exhaustion weighing on him. For months, he had not had a peaceful night's sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, the nightmares came. As he stepped into his office, something unusual caught his eye. A black envelope sat on his desk. He frowned. He didn't recall ordering anyone to bring it in. Slowly, he opened it. Inside, an old photograph. Ethan. William's heart nearly stopped. He flipped the photo over. A message was written in red ink. "The best father in the world." A chill ran down his spine. His eyes darted around the room, searching for something. Someone lurking in the shadows. But there was nothing. Only a suffocating silence squeezing the air from the room. William slammed the photo onto the desk, his breath unsteady. No, this isn't possible." Ethan was dead. He had left that child in the middle of the deep forest 25 years ago. There was no way that boy was still alive. No way. William snatched his phone, quickly dialing one of his most trusted bodyguards. "Thomas, check the security in this house immediately. Who the hell put that envelope in my office?" The other end of the line was silent for a few seconds. Then Thomas's voice came through, hesitant. "Mr. William, no one delivered a letter to your office." William felt the blood in his veins turn colder than ice. He was being watched. At that moment, in a small bar, Ethan sat in silence, his quiet eyes observing the people coming and going. He knew William would panic. He would try to tighten security, but that didn't matter. William was a man who had lived in luxury his whole life. He wasn't used to dealing with the darkness. Ethan was. Ethan. A voice cut through his thoughts. He looked up. It was Vincent. The man pulled out a chair and sat down, tossing a piece of paper onto the table. Ethan picked it up and read. A list of William's bodyguards, along with his detailed schedule. Everything you need is here. I got someone inside his house. Vincent smirked. But I have to ask you one more time, do you really want to kill him? Ethan didn't answer immediately. Kill him. For years he had dreamed of this moment. He had imagined thousands of ways to take revenge, to strangle him until his last breath faded, to drive a knife into his heart, or to let him experience the agony of being abandoned in the darkness, just as he had done to Ethan. But would killing him really bring peace? Ethan placed the paper back on the table. Not yet, he said slowly. Vincent narrowed his eyes. You want to toy with him first? Ethan smirked. A cold, merciless smile. He killed me once. Now it's my turn to let him know what that feels like. Vincent stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. Kid, I'm starting to like you. Ethan returned to his hideout. A long-abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The walls were covered with photographs. William. The people who had mocked him. The ones who had crushed him under their feet. They would all pay. Standing in the middle of those images, Ethan quietly lit a candle. The flickering flame reflected in his dark eyes. The storm was coming, and Ethan was the storm. From his hideout, he looked down at the city. William was still living in his lavish mansion, completely unaware that his final days were approaching. But Ethan wouldn't kill him yet. Not yet. William needed to suffer first, to feel fear, to experience helplessness, just as Ethan once did. And the first step was to destroy everything William had. William sat in his luxurious office, a glass of red wine swirling in his hand. But his mind was in chaos. The mysterious letter, the photograph of Ethan. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Mr. William, there's a problem. His most trusted bodyguard, Thomas, stepped in his face, grim. William set his glass down. Speak. Do you know who the culprit is? William tightened his grip on the documents. There was no way this was a coincidence. His eyes narrowed. Check all the security cameras. Thomas immediately followed the order. He reviewed every recording. But most of the cameras around the vault had been disabled. However, one crucial detail stood out. A figure appeared in the night. The face was unclear. No traces left behind. But before vanishing from the camera's view, the person had left a single letter painted in red ink on the vault door. E. William stared at the screen. He didn't need anyone to explain. He knew exactly what that letter meant. Ethan. That night, William sat alone in his office. Darkness swallowed him whole. He had already ordered security to be reinforced, but he knew it wouldn't stop what was coming. Ring! The phone rang. An unknown number. William picked up, his voice lowering. Who is this? A long silence. Then a voice. Deep, slow, bone-chilling. Father. William froze. The phone screen displayed no number, as if the call had come from nowhere. Who is this? His voice was hoarse. A soft chuckle echoed through the receiver. Cold. Emotionless. Don't you recognize me, Father? William gritted his teeth, his grip on the phone tightening. Who the hell are you? A long pause. Then Ethan. His heart stopped. No, impossible. He forced himself to stay calm, his teeth clenching. You're dead. Silence. Then the voice spoke again, quiet but laced with a chilling menace. Then who is speaking to you right now? William felt his entire body tremble. His hand gripped the phone so tightly, his knuckles turned white. He shot up from his chair and looked out the window. The city was draped in darkness. But in the distance through the rain, a lone figure stood silently staring up at the mansion. The face was obscured, but William knew he was being watched. He hung up, his heart pounding violently against his ribs. The door burst open. Thomas rushed in, his face filled with worry. "Mr. William, what happened?" William gasped for breath. "Increase security! Immediately!" Thomas frowned. "What are you afraid of?" William looked back out the window, but the figure was gone. He muttered under his breath, "He's back." Ethan looked up at the grand mansion. He had delivered his message. He knew the storm was coming, but this was just the beginning. He didn't want William to die, not yet. William needed to suffer first. He needed to lose everything. Only then would he truly understand what it felt like to be abandoned in the darkness. Ethan turned away, stepping into the rain. The storm of revenge had officially begun. William sat alone in his vast office. His fingers clenched tightly around his glass of liquor, his knuckles white. Darkness swallowed the room, only a dim table lamp flickered weakly against the shadows. He had locked himself in here all day, his mind weighed down by what had just happened. A son was dead, or at least he had believed so. But now Ethan was haunting him like a ghost. William could no longer tell what was real and what was hallucination. Thomas had reinforced security throughout the mansion, but William didn't feel any safer. The unease clung to him like an invisible hand tightening around his throat every time night fell. He couldn't escape the voice echoing in his mind. "Father, please." William gripped his head, then hurled his glass to the floor. Crash! The glass shattered. Liquor spilled out, mixing with the dim light on the wooden floor. William roared as if trying to drive away the desperate cry haunting him, but it only echoed louder. "Mr. William!" Thomas rushed in, his face tense. "What happened?" William gasped for breath, his entire body trembling. "Nothing. Nothing. Get out." Thomas hesitated, then nodded, stepping back, leaving William to drown in his own panic. William received devastating news. One of his factories on the outskirts had been vandalized. Millions of dollars worth of goods had been stolen or destroyed. He sat in the conference room surrounded by advisors and guards. His voice was low and filled with rage. "Who did this? Do we have enemies I don't know about?" Thomas exchanged looks with one of the advisors before speaking slowly. "Mr. William, we couldn't find any traces of the attackers, but there was something strange." William frowned. "Speak." Thomas swallowed hard. "In one corner of the factory we found a letter, the letter E painted in red." Silence fell over the conference room. William shot to his feet, his gaze turning ice cold. Him again. From that day on, William could no longer eat well. He could no longer sleep peacefully. Every night he felt it. Someone was standing outside his bedroom door, watching, staring through the gap. One time he jolted awake, threw the door open, but the hallway was empty. He ordered Thomas to install more cameras around the mansion, but when he checked the footage, there was nothing. Everything looked perfectly normal, except for one time. On the recording from the main entrance, a shadow, a blurred figure passing by the screen. unclear, leaving only a faint trace. William stared at the screen, his heart clenched. Ethan was no longer a child. He had grown. He had become stronger. And now he was a ghost no one could touch. William woke up and found a letter placed on his bed. He had no idea how someone had slipped into his bedroom. But one thing was certain, it wasn't from anyone inside his mansion. He opened the letter, and the words inside froze him in place. "Father, be ready." William collapsed onto the bed. His entire body trembled. He had lost everything he once thought was untouchable. His peace, his sense of security, his pride. Now there was only one question left. What did Ethan want? Ethan stood beneath the shadow of a tall building. His eyes locked onto the luxurious mansion on the hill. He knew William was afraid. He was losing his confidence. But this was only the beginning. William needed to experience everything Ethan had endured. He was in no rush. William would feel it all bit by bit, second by second, until he had no strength left to resist. Ethan closed his eyes. The cold rain splattered against his face. He had waited his entire life for this moment. William was no longer a powerful man. He stood in front of the mirror in his bedroom, and in the reflection, he no longer recognized himself. Older, weaker, consumed by fear. His hair had turned white. His eyes were sunken, trembling. He picked up his comb, but his hands were shaking so badly it slipped from his grip and fell to the floor. He bent down to pick it up, and when he lifted his head, the reflection in the mirror froze him in place. A shadow, standing right behind him. William spun around. Nothing. His breath came in ragged gasps. Cold sweat trickled down his temple. Was it just another hallucination? Or was it not? He no longer knew if he was sane. The shadows, the footsteps, the news of repeated acts of sabotage targeting his properties. Everything was pushing him to the brink of madness. And tonight, he knew, the ghosts of the past would not let him rest. A team of highly paid mercenaries sat waiting. They didn't care about William's fear. Their job was to protect him, and they were ready to do whatever it took. William descended the stairs, his gaze sweeping over their cold, hardened faces. "I want all of you to stay on high alert. No one sleeps tonight." The team leader, a massive man with a stone-like expression, nodded. "We've installed motion sensors at every entrance. No one can get in without being detected." William nodded back. But deep down, he felt no reassurance. He no longer trusted anyone, not even the men he had paid. Ethan sat silently beneath a large tree. From there, he could see the lights of William's mansion. The silhouettes of guards flickered past the windows. They were prepared for him. But Ethan was in no rush. He knew how to wait. Wait until the darkness settled in. Wait until the guards grew tired. Wait until their overconfidence made them careless. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a photograph, an old picture of William. But now a line of text had been added to it. "It's time to pay." Ethan lifted his eyes to the glowing mansion, unblinking. The mansion sank into silence. William sat in his office, a gun placed right in front of him. His grip tightened on the chair's armrest. His eyes darted around as if looking away for even a second would allow Ethan to emerge from the darkness. Creak. A sound rang out. William flinched, grabbing the gun. "Who's there?" No response. He stood up and stepped out of the room. The hallway was empty. The dim yellow light cast eerie shadows on the cold walls. Creak. The noise came again, this time from the staircase leading to the basement. William cautiously approached. He saw his shadow on the wall and another shadow, standing still, behind him. William spun around. Nothing. He felt a freezing gust of air brush past his nape. "Come out!" he shouted, his voice hoarse. "I know you're here!" He didn't realize his hands were shaking. Didn't realize that sweat had soaked through his shirt. He only felt one thing. He was being hunted. Thomas and the guards heard nothing. They thought William was only imagining things. But then creak. The basement door slowly creaked open. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs. The dim light wasn't enough to reveal his face, but Thomas immediately drew his gun. "Stop! Who are you?" The shadow didn't answer. He took another step down. Thomas raised his gun higher. "This is your final warning, Top, or I'll shoot." The shadow remained silent. But this time a deep voice emerged from the darkness. "Your boss owes me a life." Thomas's eyes widened. "Ethan." The figure took another step. The light touched his face, a faint smile. Cold, bone-chilling. "Hello, Thomas." "It's been a long time." William stepped back. His breath came in short gasps, as if the air in the room had been sucked dry. In front of him, Ethan stood still, his face frozen like a statue. But in his eyes, the fire of 25 years of hatred burned violently. "Ethan." William's voice trembled. All the power, the prestige he once held in the business world had vanished. "Father." Ethan's voice was soft, but sharp as a blade slicing through the suffocating silence. William swallowed hard. The gun in his hand loosened. He could no longer hold it steady. I don't know what to say." He tried to compose himself, but Ethan gave him no chance. "Don't say anything." Ethan stepped forward. William flinched. 25 years ago, you already said enough. You said everything you needed to when you left me in the rain." William clenched his fists, but the gun still pointed at the floor. He couldn't lift it. "Ethan, listen to me." William tried to speak, but Ethan cut him off. "There's nothing you can say that will change anything." Ethan stood right in front of him, close enough that William could see the scars on his face. Scars he had never known existed. "You abandoned me, left me to fight this cruel world alone. Did you think you could do that without facing the consequences?" William took a deep breath. He forced himself to stay calm. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I know that. But killing me won't make you feel any better." Ethan smirked, a cold, merciless smile. "Who said I was going to kill you?" William froze. "I don't want you dead. Not yet." Ethan's voice was eerily calm, emotionless. Not openly hateful, but silent and deadly. "I want you to feel fear. I want you to live every day the way I did. Drowning in darkness. Drowning in pain. Drowning in loneliness." William shook his head, desperation in his eyes. "You don't understand, Ethan. I did everything to protect the family, to preserve our honor. I had no other choice." "No other choice?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "You always say that. But you always had a choice. You could have been a real father. But instead, you took the easy way out. You abandoned your own son just to protect your hollow sense of honor." William said nothing. Ethan stepped closer, forcing him back against the wall. "You thought I was dead, didn't you? You thought I would disappear forever, never return. Ethan's gaze locked onto his. But I survived. And now, I'm here to make sure you understand. No one escapes the consequences. William felt his legs weaken. He slumped against the wall, his voice shaking. Ethan, please, I truly regret it. It's too late. Ethan's voice was ice cold. For a moment, pain flickered in his eyes. Your regret can't erase 25 years of abandonment. It can't undo the years I spent being tormented, being turned into a tool just to survive. Your regret can't bring back the childhood I lost. William reached out as if trying to grasp even a sliver of mercy from the son he had forsaken. Let me make it right. Ethan stared at him, silent. Then he turned and walked away. Ethan! William called after him, his voice echoing through the empty room. But Ethan didn't stop. He stepped through the door, his figure fading into the darkness. William's mansion still stood, but it was no longer a fortress. It was just an empty house, a place filled with painful memories and ghosts that would never fade away. William collapsed onto the floor, his head bowed, low hands covering his face. He was no longer a father, no longer a successful businessman. He was just an old man left behind in the darkness, but the silence after the storm was even more terrifying. Ethan stood motionless in a dark alley. The street lamp cast his shadow against the old brick wall. In his hand, a small knife still stained with blood. He had just finished another fight in the underworld. Yet he felt nothing. The faces had long faded from memory. The screams had been silenced long ago. It had been too long since he had last felt anything after taking a life. But this time a small sound made him pause. Please, help me. A weak voice came from the end of the alley. Ethan turned, his cold eyes narrowing toward the sound. A child. Not much younger than he had been back then. The boy lay curled up against the wall, trembling. His frail, thin arm reached out weakly. Please, help me. Ethan stood still, his eyes dark. He had seen this scene hundreds of times before. A weak, useless child abandoned by the world. Useless. Abandoned by the world. This child was no different from Ethan all those years ago. Where are the adults? Ethan's voice was low and cold. The boy shook his head, his voice trembling. They beat me. They took me. I don't want to. Ethan took a deep breath. He should turn away and walk off. This wasn't his problem. He had survived on his own. No one helped him. He knew better than anyone in this world, you could only rely on yourself. But those eyes, terrified yet still holding on to a fragile glimmer of hope, they made him hesitate. Would he really let this happen again? Ethan crouched down, lifting the child effortlessly with one arm. The boy flinched, trembling. Don't hit me. Shut up. Ethan's voice was firm, but no longer as cold as before. Who took you? The boy looked up, tears welling in his eyes. They're a gang. They take kids to do bad things. Please, don't let them take me. I'm scared. Ethan sighed, shrugging off his coat and wrapping it around the boy. Stop talking. I'm getting you out of here. The boy stared at Ethan, gratitude flickering in his gaze, but also a hint of doubt. Who are you? Ethan didn't answer. He carried the child out of the alley and stepped onto the empty street. One question kept repeating in his mind. Why am I doing this? That whole night, Ethan took the boy to a small house on the outskirts of the city, a place he often used as a hideout after his jobs. He set the boy down on the bed, pulling an old blanket over him. But instead of leaving, Ethan sat down on a wooden chair nearby. He silently watched the boy sleep. The dim glow of the oil lamp softened the harsh edges of the room. Memories crept in. You were once a child abandoned, beaten, forced to do terrible things just to survive. You had looked into the eyes of adults and seen only indifference, contempt, and apathy. And yet now you were doing something no one had ever done for you, offering a bit of kindness. The boy woke up, his eyes swollen from crying all night. Ethan handed him a dry piece of bread and a glass of water. Eat. The boy hesitated, then took it. Thank you, sir. Ethan didn't respond. He just sat still, watching as the boy ate bite by bite. You're not going to make me do anything, are you? The boy's voice was full of worry. Ethan frowned. I'm not like them. The boy lowered his head. I'm sorry. I don't know who to trust anymore. Ethan remained silent. He understood that feeling. Living in darkness for so long, to the point where you couldn't tell light from shadow anymore. A thought flickered in his mind. This boy didn't deserve to be abandoned. And if Ethan could save one child, maybe he could save himself too. When the boy finished eating, Ethan stood up, tucking his small knife into his belt. Come on, I'm taking you somewhere safe. And the boy looked at him, hope flickering in his eyes. Really? Really? For the first time in years, Ethan realized that deep inside him, a tiny light had begun to flicker. Ethan and the boy walked through the quiet streets. The glow of streetlights cast their shadows onto the wet pavement. It was still early. The city had yet to wake. The soft clicking of Ethan's boots echoed through the empty roads, while the boy followed in silence, occasionally glancing up at the man who had saved him. Where are we going? The boy asked softly. Somewhere safe. Ethan replied without turning back. And what about you? The boy spoke again after a long pause. Ethan stopped walking. He turned to look at the boy, his gaze contemplative, as if carefully choosing his words. I have things to do. The boy didn't ask further. There was something in Ethan's voice, something that made him understand that the man walking beside him was not just leading the way. He was searching for his own path, though he never said it out loud. Ethan took the boy to a small orphanage on the outskirts of the city. A middle-aged woman with a kind face greeted them at the door. Hello, Miss Margaret, Ethan said quietly. Margaret's eyes widened in surprise. Ethan, it's been so long. But why? She glanced at the boy, then back at Ethan. Is this... He needs a safe place, Ethan explained. Can you take care of him? Margaret nodded, offering a gentle smile to the boy. Of course. Come inside, sweetheart. I'll take care of you. The boy looked up at Ethan one last time, gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you. You never told me your name. Ethan dipped his head slightly. Just call me Ethan. The boy gave a small nod. Thank you, Ethan. As the orphanage door closed, Ethan stood there for a long time. The wind blew past, making his long coat flutter. He didn't know what had compelled him to bring the boy here. He only knew that for the first time in years, he felt like he had done something right. But Ethan's life couldn't change so easily because of one action. He was still haunted by ghosts, hunted by enemies in the shadows, and burdened by a fire of vengeance that had never been extinguished. Vincent was still the biggest shadow in his life, the one who had once taught him how to survive in this harsh world, but also the one who had turned him into a tool. Vincent had to pay, and so did all those who had looked down on him, tormented him, when he was just a forsaken child. Ethan returned to the city as the sky brightened. He made his way to a small bar, the place where Vincent was known to frequent. He was sitting in the corner of the bar, laughing and chatting with a group of men. But the moment Ethan walked in, his gaze immediately locked onto him. "Ethan!" Vincent's voice was louder than usual. "It's been a while. You doing okay?" Ethan walked over, pulled out a chair, sat down across from Vincent. His face was unreadable. "I'm still alive," he replied curtly. Vincent leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "I heard you've been running your own business, leaving without a word. That's disappointing." "Disappointing." Ethan let out a cold chuckle. "I learned how to survive from you. I learned how to endure. Now I don't need you anymore." Vincent burst into laughter. "That's my boy. I taught you how to live, and now you turn your back on me. But it's fine. I knew this day would come." Ethan leaned in slightly. His voice was quiet but razor sharp. "Then you must also know what's coming, don't you?" Vincent's smile faded. His eyes grew sharper. "You think you can take me on?" Ethan stood up, leaned down just enough to whisper into Vincent's ear. "I'm not just taking you on. I'm ending you." Vincent froze. His face slowly tensed. Ethan turned and walked away. The entire bar fell into heavy silence. As he stepped outside, the morning sunlight began to push away the darkness. But inside him, the darkness remained. The only difference was that now he had a new purpose. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted change. And to change, he had to face every person who had wronged him. He had to end his story differently. Raindrops pattered against the old rooftops, creating a slow, rhythmic melody. Ethan stood atop an abandoned building, his eyes locked onto the street below. Vincent was leaving the bar, still walking with that same confident stride, as if he were still the untouchable king of the underworld. Ethan narrowed his eyes. He doesn't know. This will be his last night. Vincent turned into a dark alley where the streetlights couldn't reach. He had no idea that Ethan had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Vincent." Vincent stopped turning around. Ethan stood just a few meters away, his gaze sharper than the night itself. Vincent chuckled, but this time there was unease in his smile. "So you're choosing to end this with violence?" Ethan didn't answer. He stepped forward. Vincent took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. "I taught you how to survive, Ethan. You can kill me, but you'll never escape the darkness. You'll always be the thing I created." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "No, you're wrong." Vincent frowned. "What? I'm not something you created." Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a small knife, but he didn't step closer. "I used to think I had no choice, that I had to become a monster just like you. But I was wrong." Vincent stayed silent, but for a brief second, unease flickered through his eyes. "There was a child, just like me once. I saved him. I didn't turn my back like everyone else did. I gave him a chance no one ever gave me." Vincent smirked, forcing a scoff. "So you think, because of some nameless brat, you can change? That's ridiculous." "No," Ethan replied simply, "but it's a start." He stepped forward, gripping the knife tighter. Vincent instinctively stepped back. his hand moving toward the gun holstered at his waist. Vincent never got the chance to draw it. Ethan lunged swift as the wind. Bam! A solid punch to the jaw sent Vincent staggering back, nearly collapsing. He reached for his gun, but Ethan had already anticipated the move. Thud. A powerful kick sent the weapon flying. Vincent cursed, but he had no time to counter. Ethan slammed him to the ground, one hand clamping around his throat. For the first time in his life, Vincent was no longer the stronger one. "Do it!" Vincent choked out, his voice breaking. "You want to kill me, don't you? And then do it!" Ethan raised the knife and stopped. He looked at Vincent, the man who had once been a demon in his life. Now he was small and weak, more pathetic than terrifying. And Ethan realized something. Vincent wasn't scary anymore. Ethan let go. Vincent gasped for air, coughing, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You," he panted. "You're not going to kill me." Ethan stood up, stepping back. "No. Death is too easy for you." Vincent stared at him, panic creeping into his eyes. "Then, what are you going to do?" Ethan reached into his coat, pulled out a USB drive, tossed it onto the ground beside Vincent. "That contains all the evidence of your dirty dealings. It's already been sent to the police." Vincent's eyes widened in shock. You won't die." Ethan's voice was low but unwavering. "But you'll lose everything." Vincent lunged at him, but Ethan had already turned away. This time it was Vincent who was left behind in the darkness. Ethan didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had closed the darkest chapter of his life without shedding any more blood. He had chosen a different path. Ethan stepped out of the alley. The first light of dawn began to touch the horizon. He pulled out his phone, opened his contacts, and stopped at one name: Margaret. After a moment of hesitation, he pressed call. "Hello?" Margaret's voice came through. "How's the boy?" Ethan asked. "He's doing well." Margaret smiled through the phone. "Yesterday he asked me if you were coming back." Ethan was silent. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "Maybe." He hung up, looked up at the brightening sky. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly free. This story did not end with revenge. It ended with a choice. A child once abandoned had decided not to let his past control him anymore. He had stepped out of the darkness. And for the first time, he saw the light. Ethan's journey teaches us that revenge is not the only path. Despite betrayal and suffering, he had the power to choose between hatred and forgiveness. He realized revenge does not bring peace. It only prolongs the pain. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the strongest way to overcome the past. Only by letting go of hatred can one truly be free. Life is a choice: to be consumed by darkness or to walk toward the light. Do you believe that forgiveness is the strongest way to overcome the past if you were? Ethan, would you choose revenge or let go? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire others. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more meaningful content. And make sure to share it with your friends and loved ones. Sometimes a story can change someone's perspective. Thank you for being with us. Remember, we all have the power to choose light over darkness. See you soon. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.